God bless you. You may be seated. It's so good to be back with you today. After being gone last week, Tammy and I had a wedding that we had to perform down in the Carolinas on Saturday night. And I could have made it home if I'd have drove all night, but you would not have wanted to have seen nor heard me. I am too old to do all-nighters anymore. But I never leave you. I'm like Jesus. I never forsake you. I always leave you the best. How many of you enjoyed Dr. Mama Trout last week? See, I kept it a secret because I figured you don't need to just be coming to hear her, but if you were coming to hear me, you got treated with her. How's that? But it's been just a wonderful week, and she so enjoyed. She has just set the bar way too high. She is 84 years old, 83 years old. Oh, she would shoot me. 83 years, sorry, Mom. If you're joining us online, please text my mom, tell her I'm sorry. But her mind is just as sharp as ever. And she still pastors her little church in Georgetown, and she pastors the church in Northeast Maryland. So it's a rarity that I can wrangle her into being here. She's one of those people that have the philosophy that you don't go quietly. She will go out with a bang. And yeah. So I would ask you to pray for her, but rather than doing that, pray for me. Because none of you all know what it's like having a mother like Janet Trout. But what a lady. Thrilled that she could be with you last week. And I'm thrilled. I'm excited about church today. I love my church. Yeah. If you love your church, why don't you just clap your hands if you love your church. Yeah. And I want to talk to you for a little while here this morning. And I was thinking about how I was going to approach this, and God kind of changed it all up on me early this morning, so I came in this morning and rewrote everything that I had written down last night, and it turned out totally different than what I thought it would, so when I get done today, it'll probably be totally different than what I wrote it down. But I feel it's the right thing to do, and I said, God, I'm the kind of guy that I like. Everybody, I think, is this way, that you like to be liked by people, right? It's nice to be liked by people. Nobody wants to be disliked by people. But I came to this conclusion, is that I love you so much that I must preach to you and declare the truth. I love you more than I love my personal comfort. Is that okay? Because I'd like to get up here every single Sunday and just make you feel like $1,000,000. And hopefully when I'm done today, you'll at least feel like 100. Because I've had so many questions over the last 15 months. What is going on in the world, and what is all this about, and what should we be doing, and basically trying to understand the times that we're living in. The times that we're living in. And my goal today, my mission today, is to help you understand where we're at. That's my basic mission. And in the process, you may want to put your safety boots on with your steel toes. because I might step on a toe here or there. My name is Anthony, and I am your friend. But I think it's important that we understand the times, because over the last 15 months, we have been through a lot. A lot. And I've heard this term, and so I put it into my notes concerning COVID-19, and that is that it is a black swan event, a black swan event. I don't know that I've ever seen a black swan. They're very, very rare. You know what a swan is, right? Okay, I don't want to leave you here the first 3 minutes. Most of them you see are white, or white and with a little color here or there, but they've named this event a black swan. So I kind of investigated what they meant by that, and really it means that it has never happened before. And so therefore there is no reference point for us to draw from. And the reason that people are so insecure, including Christians, is because anytime you don't have a reference point, it brings fear because it is unknown. Is this making sense to you? Okay. It is known as a black swan event, and there is several things that constitute that. One is it is unpredictable. Number two, it carries a mass impact. And after the fact, and it's all done, we will conclude that it's less random than what we thought it was. But it is not just COVID that's the black swan. It seems like we have had a whole flock of black swans. A whole flock. You do know what a flock is, right? Okay, I have to be careful because I use farm terminology every now and then. In the last 15 months, we have had COVID-19. We have had civil unrest. We have had rioting and burning of cities. We have had a highly contested election. And even masks, are now polarizing. I never thought I would see the day that a 6-inch by 4-inch piece of cotton would be so controversial. Now we have murder hornets. I heard that on the radio and I thought, what next? Murder hornets. And it seems like the punches just keep coming. And on top of all this is the everyday personal stuff that you deal with. The losing of loved ones. The fracturing of families. I wouldn't be surprised. In fact, I'm at the point, and I'm just speaking for me now, maybe you'll relate. If I went home this afternoon and a meteor had struck my house, I'd drive up in the driveway and look at it and go, man, it's 2021. Yep. And when you go through all of this stuff, People are walking around like zombies. A number of years ago, there was a TV show that came out, and my crazy son, Devin, I don't know what's wrong with the child. He loves horror movies. I said, Devin, why? He loves to be scared. I said, I can scare you if you want to be scared. So what is wrong with you? We raised you better than that. He likes horror movies. He likes, and so he said, Dad, you've got to watch The Walking Dead. Somebody else. I said, The Walking Dead? That sounds gruesome. And so finally, after much badgering, he convinced me, and I went home one evening and I pulled up the first few episodes, and it is riveting. It really is. And I watched halfway through a season in one night. And I thought, this is nuts. This is crazy. But that was before the pandemic. And the thing that really got my attention is we have people that are walking around today, maybe not physically, but spiritually, mentally, they're zombies. There's no joy. There's no peace. There's no happiness in their life. There's barely a pulse. Because we as a society are punch drunk because we keep getting hit. I've never seen such a season of isolation, of polarization, of sadness and distrust. There is not one person on TV who speaks the truth and doesn't have an agenda. Pure truth does not have an agenda. I thank you for those two amens. I appreciate that. Would somebody please at home type amen in there and help me out? I am so young, but I'm old enough to remember the days when the TV consisted of UHF and VHF. Yeah, some of y'all just told your age. And there were a couple dials on there, and there were only maybe 6 channels, and 3 of them were news, and the other 3 I used to love because you had one channel that always played, stuff like Gunsmoke, or Mayberry, Andy Griffith Show. Those were great. In fact, Tammy and I sit down periodically in the evening, and we'll sit. Our kids are gone, so we can eat anywhere we want to in the house. We'll sit down and we'll watch Andy Griffith and just laugh at the dumbest stuff. We didn't have TV in our home. I had to go to the Saints' house to watch it. So if I'm messed up, it's your fault. I can remember my parents used to have the Kennedys babysit me when I was smaller, and they had a TV, and I loved going to their house. I didn't want to go home because I got to watch Gunsmoke every night before I went to bed, And I can remember Pop Kennedy because I was the remote. And I can remember when the news would go off, I was the one that could, if there was one channel I knew, it was the Gunsmoke channel. But I remember him watching the news, and there were really only 3 networks at the time: ABC, CBS, NBC. And I remember a news anchor called Walter Cronkite. And he ended every show, and this left an impression on me. I didn't know really the depth of it at that time, but as my memory goes back, I remember him ending, and it was a 30-minute newscast. And they had time for commercials, so there was actually about 22 or 23 minutes of actual news, and the rest was candy bars and Coca-Cola. Now it's medicine. But Walter Cronkite would end every newscast with this statement, and that's the way it is. And I thought to myself, can you imagine today a newscaster ending the broadcast with, and that's the way it is? Because we'd go, yeah, right. Because we've become distrusting, and probably rightfully so because of that. I couldn't imagine anybody on TV saying that today, because we live in a different day. We're so polarized that even our masks have become political. You wear a mask, you're standing for or against something. I'm so confused. I don't know who's standing for what. Cotton is political. Everything is a hot topic. And here we are. We have the tail wagging the dog. We are the dog. And we come to a place that we must decide: are we American Christians, or are we Christian Americans? I want to say that again. We come to the place where we must decide: are we American Christians, or are we Christian Americans? I'll say it a third time. We've got to decide: are we American Christians, or are we Christian Americans? Because whichever one you put first is the one you prioritize. And so for too long, we are Americans first and Christians second, when we should be Christians first. We have to decide which animal we're going to follow. You got your boots on? Are we going to follow an elephant? Are we going to follow a donkey? Or are we going to follow the lamb? Ah. Man, I feel something right now. Hang on. Don't leave yet. I've got a scripture I want to read you in 1 Chronicles, the 12th chapter, the 32nd verse. And of the children of Issachar, which were men that had understanding of the times, to know what Israel ought to do. The heads of them were 200, and all their brethren were at their commandment. There were 200 men that knew the times in Israel. My prayer is today is that we leave here not with an agenda, but knowing the times. Now, I'm losing a couple of you, but hang on here. We are not here to cancel culture. Oh, that's my wife. Thank you, baby. I appreciate it. I got to go home with her. I don't have to go home with you. We are not here to cancel culture. We are here for kingdom culture. We have to ask ourselves the question, are we acting politically right or are we acting righteous? I have never seen a day when even believers have become appearing as ungodly because they become so indignant about things that were not eternal. Am I acting right or am I acting righteous? We must understand that we must both have truth and grace. Because truth alone is painful. The truth of the matter, all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. But grace comes walking in and greets truth and says, yes, but the blood of Jesus Christ atones for all sin, that by His blood I am healed. Oh my God. You see, truth by itself is painful. Truth by itself is mean. Grace without truth, though, is meaningless. But together, grace and truth is a medicine that will heal whoever you are. And today in this generation, we need grace and truth. That is highly illustrated. And you say, Pastor, where are you coming from? I'm coming from the fact that we need to start acting more like Jesus. Jesus did not get involved in politics, even though it was politics that hung him on the cross. There was a whole group of people, including some of the disciples, that thought He was coming and He was going to sit on an earthly throne. And He disappointed them because they didn't see the true picture. You see, Jesus came to introduce us to kingdom culture. That's why He said this in the garden, Thy kingdom come, and Thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. The introduction of heavenly kingdom into the earthly realm. Oh my God, I feel like preaching right now. Is that you have to understand that these things that I mention will not faze you if you have a kingdom-minded stance. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall never, he says, pass away. We need men like in 1 Chronicles that know the times in which we live. We need men and women that know exactly where we're at. And the only way we can have those kind of people is if we can begin to see through the haze and begin to see the true picture of what is really going on in the world. How do I deal with that, Pastor? Sometimes you just have to stand fast. Not popular, not famous, but listen to what Philippians 1 says. The 4th chapter, the 1st verse. Therefore, my brethren, dearly beloved, and longed for, my joy and crown. So stand fast in the Lord. Not in your beliefs, but in the Lord. In order to stand fast, you have to see the true picture. Our family at different points in our lives have walked through some pretty dark times when it didn't seem you could see your hand in front of your face, and the haze and the darkness was almost overwhelming, and you don't understand. And just this past week, I said to my whole family, my mom and Jeanette and her kids and my wife, we all get together usually on Sunday and have dinner together. And I said to them, we have to understand that it is painful now, but we have to see what God has planned for the future. Because what is hurting us now will probably benefit us in the future. You have to see the true picture. Years ago, how many of you remember when the Blue Hen Mall was the Blue Hen Mall? Some of you have been around a few days. That's the place. That's the place I used to go when we weren't allowed to date, and we just happened to meet there together and go to Woolworths for a burger. Not a date. It was just a burger, but you see what it turned into. And I remember, particularly in one shop, we were walking down the mall, and in one shop they had these big pictures like this on a frame, sitting on an easel, like 3 of them out in front of the store. And the caption in front of those pictures was simply this: do you see it? I thought, yeah, I see it. That's a dumb question. And Kurt Davis, he was the best man at my wedding. He goes, no. He goes, no, there's something else to these pictures. I said, it looks just like a mess to me. Show that picture. Show that picture. You remember those? It looks like somebody just repeated something over and over again on the canvas. And I thought that, he goes, no, stop. Because I was just going to go by. I thought, I'm not a guy that has time for stupidity. I just don't have time for stupidity. One famous comedian says, you can't fix it. And I just don't, whether it's in pictures or people. and so I just don't have time. I'm not going to stand there and waste my life staring at something. I remember he grabbed me and he pulled me back. He goes, no, just take a minute and look. Nothing. He said, keep looking. Nothing. found my eyes got a little tired. And out of what I thought was a bunch of gibberish and confusion appeared a beautiful picture. But my eyes had to go a little crossed and a little out of focus. And I couldn't see anything else except for what was in that picture. It was seeing through it, because the picture that you're looking at now, you see, you're just seeing a bunch of gibberish unless you have caught what's really in the picture. Because in that picture is a picture of Christ hanging on the cross with a soldier with a spear in his side. And two other crosses on either side of him. And you're going, I don't see it. Keep looking. I don't see it. Keep looking. Because sometimes the answer that you're looking for is in the picture that you're staring at. At some point, we have to understand that there's more to what we're looking at than just what we're seeing. I would ask you how many of you have seen it yet, but I don't want to embarrass you. You see, we have become so accustomed to blocking out that which we do not want to see. We have Christians that will drive past accidents that will not stop to help because they don't want to see it. And we've programmed ourselves not to see it. Let me prove it to you. That's why when they catch a serial killer and they interview the neighbors, the guy's killed 42 people. And they say the neighbors say, oh, but he seemed to be like a nice guy. You never hear anybody say with a wife in the background, I told you. Why? Because we've programmed ourselves to only see what we want to see. It's time that we look deeper into what is going on in our world so that we can see what Jesus Christ is doing in our world. I know I lost you, but that's okay. I'm still your friend. Jesus, and I'm coming to a close. I'm almost out of time. You see, Jesus spent his entire ministry trying to get people to see the true picture. It's not a political picture. It's an eternal picture. So where does that leave us today? He said, I've come to give you life, and that more abundantly. Life is not living in fear. Life is getting out of bed every morning with your body creaking and popping and saying, I can't wait to see what you're going to do today. You see, when you see the bigger picture, you see very quickly that this world is not our home. Because when Jesus left, he said, I must go away because I'm going to prepare a place for you that where I am, you may be also. It's the bigger picture. The problem is, it's not a reality even for a lot of Christians. That's why we get so wrapped up in the daily junk. If we could see what is really in the picture, we would get out of bed every morning excited. Because if you read where we're living and what it says in here, and the description that it gives of where we're at, we're just waiting on the trumpet to sound. Okay, so you want to watch the news? Nations are all turning against Israel, turn their back on Israel, right? Everybody, that's news, right? You know what this says about that? It says that when the world turns its back on Israel, and I'm paraphrasing, but you can go and find it for yourself. When the world turns its back on Israel, it says, time's coming because Jesus is getting ready to come rescue them. So I would ask you today to look at the picture until you see what's really in it. I don't see it just yet. Look at it a little bit more. Read it some more. Because if you want to know where we're at and you want to find joy in the midst of all this mess, He is my peace in the midst of the storm. He is my peace that passes all understanding. Two years ago, last week, I buried my father. A rock. As I sat at the end of the bed the night that he passed away, my mind was racing back through a great history of things that he had imparted into me. Hard work, determination, stickability. I wanted to be sad when he passed. There were lots of tears that were cried by friends and family. And I cried a little bit when we got ready to take him out. But I couldn't find the tears after that. And I began to think to myself, all of the cultural terminology, because I'm affected by it just like you are. Are you in denial? It's not a river in Egypt. And then I thought, no, it's none of that crazy mess. The reason that I just can't get unbelievably upset about a believer that has gone on, because they're better off than I am. It depends on what you see in the picture. And I can only imagine the joy from stepping from this life into eternal light. I can only imagine, one songwriter puts it, the glory that you will bathe in, where time will be no more. No more work schedule. No more bills. No more sickness. No more loss. No more grieving. No more pain. My knees won't pop and click like Rice Krispies when I get out of bed. I'll have a new body. You'll have a new body. One old guy thought they were singing for years. He thought they were singing, I'll have a new body. Thank the Lord, I'll have a new wife. You see, it's all in the picture that you're looking at. Really, this is just a dress rehearsal. Where are you standing right now? Are you standing on the precipice of hopelessness, exhaustion, of debt, of sickness, of destruction, of loss? Can I tell you just to take a step back and see the bigger picture? Is that through all that you're going through, God has something enormously wonderful planned for you. I've got to go. I'm over time. Would you stand together? Father, I thank you for this time that we've had together. And I pray, God, that as we go about what we must do this week, that we become kingdom-minded. That our viewpoint changes and that we see what you want us to see. God, that we see hurting people that desperately need you. That we see children that desperately need our time to invest in them. And I pray, God, that as we go through this week that we begin to see kingdom things. And that we become more acutely aware that you're in control of everything. And that peace would return, that joy would return, and God, that we would celebrate every day that you've made for us. We thank you for your presence that we felt in this house. And we give you praise. Would you lift your hands right now and give God praise in this house? We love you, Jesus. We love you, Jesus. We love you, Jesus. We love you, Jesus. Right where you're at. There may be something that you need in your life. There may be something that is weighing on you heavily. I can't fix it for you, but if you'll just lift your hands. Man, I feel His presence in this house. Lift your hands right where you're at and ask God to give you the vision that you need, which in turn will give you the strength that you need to go through whatever you're going through. Father, I pray right now that eyes and hearts would be open in this house, that people would see that this is not the end, it's only the beginning. That we're not desperate, God, but we're hopeful. I pray right now that you would breathe into us the breath of your life. Let us leave this place encouraged with joy in our heart, fearing nothing because knowing that you are in control. We bless your holy name and we give you praise in this house because you are worthy to be praised. Hallelujah. We bless your name. We bless your name. We bless your name.